crazy. All right, mini goat lovers. Here we are with the one and only 72 volt mini goat. I've had this bike for several months. We've been doing some troubleshooting. We had a couple of issues with it, and working with Goat, we come to a resolution, and that is we got a brand new motor and a brand new controller. Now we did do some testing, and I'm going to explain how to do the whole install, whole swap. Goat Power is sending new controllers and new motors to everybody that bought a mini goat, and then anybody else that buys it from here on out will get this new motor and controller. So this is a 72 volt 3000 watt nominal, 5300 watt peak. That's right, 5300 watts peak. Ridiculous. It's going to be awesome. Can't wait to show you. That'll be another video though. So originally it came with this controller. This controller was installed on the bike already. So normally this is where your seat goes. We took the seat off. It's been so long since I made videos on this bike, because I did do a whole unboxing and assembly video for this, and that'll go in the review video when I make that. But here's the seat. In the interim, we were testing, and Goat sent me out a new controller. That's what this is right here. It's the exact same controller they sent me today. I don't know if they're different, but I'm just going to swap them regardless, just to make sure. Maybe the settings are different, who knows. So the stock controller, this is maybe what you have already on your mini goat. This you're going to get rid of. So to get this off, you actually have to pry up underneath. You could use a screwdriver. I use a pry bar, a little pry bar, but you're going to have to pry it off because it's stuck with this double-sided tape to secure it in place. And normally this controller is in the back, and this little box here is in the front. We had to swap them because the cable was not long enough to reach. So I just moved this back here and put the controller up here. If you have this controller, pull it out, undo all the cables, make sure your battery is unhooked. So pull this cable first. This is your battery connection. Then you can pull your phase wires and your other 3 cables. All those are going to be removed, and they will be plugging into this. So the new controller is going to be the exact same, so I can just show you. It's got this little plastic cover over it, but your phase wires go here, your battery wires go here, of course, red to red, black to black, and then your 3 cables here all plug into the same spot, and then your black cables here only go in one way to each cable, so you can't really mess it up. But this is the new one. This is what you're going to be hooking up. And we're going to have to move so that I can flip this around. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and flip the bike around. Alright, and this thing's pretty heavy with the battery in here. If you want to make it easier on yourself, take the battery out of the frame. I like to do things the hard way. Almost every time I do something. And we're just going to roll it back here until it hits the floor. Grab it and set it down. And if you're using handlebar jacks or styrofoam or something, just make sure everything's nice and sturdy. Alright, so for this, we got our motor cable free. You can see all the zip tie points here. That's where the cable goes. So when you rerun your cable back up through the frame, you'll go underneath this wire, you'll stick it down that hole, and then you'll zip tie. Of course, that's what the new motor. Take these little plastic caps off. So the first thing we're going to do is pull these big bolts off the back of the motor. Remove the derailleur guard and the torque plates here. So these are made so that the frame doesn't break when you're driving. And we do have a tensioner, which I'm not sure if we'll need to do anything with. I can't remember if I had to loosen it or anything. I'm trying to think that maybe I did. I don't know. But let's see. So you're going to need a 21 millimeter socket to get this off. Yours will probably be on way tighter than mine. Again, I uninstalled this once, reinstalled it, did a lot of different things through testing. So those are your big bolts. You're also going to have washers. We just need to get Allen wrenches. Also, your fender is attached to the plate here. So that's on both sides, which this is a 4 millimeter. You're going to have to remove the one off the fender as well as the other 3. I'm going to fast forward after I get these plates off, and then I'll show you how to swap the wheel real quick. Alright, all that's good. Now we should be able to slide the motor out. This is where it's kind of tricky, but if you follow my directions, you should be able to get it in there pretty easily, and then we'll put the other one on. Now right now, this is rubbing against the tire because we have it loose down here. We're going to leave it loose though, because we're going to have to be able to screw the guard back on. What you want to do when you get to this point is you're going to lift up on the tensioner, and that's going to loosen up the chain, and you want to pull that chain off all the way, and you'll have to be careful here because you can cut yourself and get your finger caught in there, so just be careful. And you're going to get oily. There's no way around it here. But just put your chain on the side like that. If you can, kind of wrap it up around here just so it's out of the way when you install the new motor. And there are torque washers on here, so when you slide this out, remember these go pointing towards the back. That keeps the wheel from turning as well, so there's extra protection from the motor stripping out and freewheeling and not working anymore. With this high powered motor, they need something like that. So now once you get that off, just keep your chain out of the way. You're going to remember that you need to put that back over when you slide the new motor on, and then when you do that, you're going to basically run the chain back around and back on the gear. So just leave that loose, slide this out. Might have to move the tensioner out of the way, and this is pretty heavy, but that's that. Now you guys have a spare tire and a spare rotor if you need it. So your new motor, it's basically going to go on the same way. It looks like they already have all the stuff that you took off the other one. So pull all your bolt, set it to the side, and do this in order so you know how they go. Alright, we're going to set both bolts on the side there. We're going to take our thick washer, stick it there. It is slotted so it can only go on one way. You can't put it on here. It has to be installed like that. And then here's the other one. So we're going to take that, we're going to lay it flat. Again, remember when you install this, it's going to go in the back. So just rotate your rim so that this is pointing towards the back of the bike. We're going to do the same thing on the other side. Set them in order. We are going to need to cut the zip ties off of this to get the cable free. We're going to cut the zip ties off. There's only one securing that. So when you're installing this cable, the motor cable, is going to be pointing up. Technically it's pointing at the bottom when you flip the bike around, but in this orientation this wire is going up. So make sure you have that. Take your torque washer. It's going to go like this, and it's going to go and slide like so. So basically this is going to go sliding through here, this part right here, and when it rotates, there's no way for it to rotate out of place. Next, you're going to take the other one, same thing, slide it right there, and then we're going to take our motor. Now this might be where you need two people, depending. Now this is flat here, the other part's rounded and threaded, so this flat part goes straight on here and goes in between the metal right there. Okay, there we go. Now take that chain, if you can. This is where you're gonna kind of have to finagle things around here. There you go, and that'll slide in there. We're pushing the tensioning down, and try to get this in here. There we go. And we are on. So wrap it around the bottom and then come up like that. And then that should hold your motor in place. Now take your plate. Again, you're going to have to finagle that in there. So then you take your derailleur guard, or chain tensioner guard, and your other washer like this. There's that. So plate, washer, bolt, and make sure it tightens good. We're just going to leave this loose for now, just to kind of hold it in place though, because we are going to have to move the plate around to get it lined up with the holes. That kind of holds everything in place. So now we will go and do this side first. So here we go. We got the motor cable pointing towards the bottom of the bike. And then this cable is going to run down through these zip tie points here and then up through that slot like I showed you earlier. Then we have our plate, our washer, and our bolt here. Our torque washer right here is on the back side with that little lip hanging out in that little slot there. Same with over here. Washers in the slot, chains on the tensioner and the freewheel. We have our derailleur guard, our chain tensioner guard right here. We got our bolt and washer holding that in place for now. Then we'll take our long fender bolt, which was the first one I took out so that I could put it in the right order when I set them down. This is always a little tricky. But we just gotta make sure everything's lined up, which now it is. Take our Allen key, twist this in, make sure it's not being stripped. Again, you may need another person to help you do all of this. It might be easier. I would consider myself a professional bike builder by now. Just because of the amount of bikes I put together. Now leave these loose so you can get everything lined up before you tighten them completely down. And then once we get all these bolts secured, we'll tighten the big bolt down. And then we'll zip tie our motor cable and run that up. And we're going to do the exact same thing on the other side. And I will take you there and get you closer. You don't want to over torque these because they will break. So just get them nice and tight. When you feel it that it's not moving anymore, stop. Okay. And then we'll take our socket. We want that one on there really tight. Okay, again, you're going to need a 21mm socket for that one. We are going to leave this loose so we can slide this around and get our bolts on. First one we're going to do is our fender. Alright, got all that. Now we need to tighten this tensioner up again. So we need the number 9. We need a 9mm. And that'll get that off your tire too. I think that's good. And then the last thing we do, well, as far as installing the motor, the last thing we do is tightening this. Now we may have to make some adjustments when we start riding. I can already tell the brake needs to be aligned, but Put your cap there. Now the last thing we need to do is zip tie this cable on these zip tie points right here. There's 3 of them, and then we'll go ahead and fish our cable through. Okay, so now we have our cable right here that we ran through, and we're just going to zip tie this wire down, and that'll be it for the motor install. Alrighty, we got the motor installed. Now it's time to go ahead and put the controller in. So here is the cable that we ran up from the motor that we just put in. Okay, so now we have the plugs plugged into the controller. We can start installing the other things. We had to rotate the controller so that the phase wires could fit. And there's 2 of these white plugs on the new controller. You only need to use one. I'm using the one with the red, blue, green, yellow, and black. The other one is supposedly if this hall sensor fails, it's a spare so that we could swap them out. I guess if the wire shorts out or something like that. But they do have it really nice and wrapped up here. One thing I would ask them to do to make this a little bit easier for install is to make these cables, these phase wires that come from the motor, to make them a little bit longer. Right now I have to have the controller flipped, and then of course the battery cable is going over this whole thing. Not a problem, but I do wish that these cables here were just a little bit longer. Before we install those though, we are going to grab our connectors from the controller and connect them to the connectors here. And these go to various things like the turn signals, tail lights, headlights, whatever else, ignition switch, all that. Plug those in. They are color coded. Now this one will be keyed, but it's also got an arrow where you know where to line these up. And then this last cable will plug into one of these 2 hall sensors. Again, I'm using the red, blue, yellow, green one, and we're going to plug that in here. And it can only go one way. There's a little tab here, so that's how that works. And then finally, before we hook up the battery, we're going to connect the phase wires, which they go color to color. So we'll do the blue one first since it's the furthest one out here. Next one is green. Should go like this. Make sure those are really secured, and then your last one is the yellow one. That one will go here. It's a tight fit. Now we're doing all of this with the battery disconnected, and that'll be the last thing that we hook up here. There you go, that's nice and secure now. Here is our battery cable. I'm going to take this red cable off of this plug here and plug it into the yellow port right here. And then this big cable is the cable to your battery. You'll plug that in. And it can only go one way. And then before we put the seat back on, we need to put this plastic piece on, which protects anything hitting these connections. So there's all that. Nice and organized. Let's go ahead and turn the bike on. Alright, so let's go ahead and turn the key on and power up the bike. Make sure it comes on. There we go. We got a goat logo, and we want to be in a PAS level. And then we're going to just tilt the bike a little and hit the throttle, see if it works. Now I did change some settings on here, so let me see. Start strength, we had it on 1, so that's why it was ramping up so slow. We got it on 5 now. Go ahead and exit out. Got it on PAS 3. Yeah, you can see the start strength 1, it was a gradual increase. Here we go. Gotta make sure there's nothing in my way when I'm doing this. And it's reading let me move you guys over here. You guys should see the screen pretty clearly now. We have it on start strength 5, so it's going to go up the speed really quick. "85 miles an hour." 85 miles an hour. Let me put you down so you can see the actual motor go. Crazy. So the start strength's gonna be how fast that motor kicks on. So we're gonna start it at a lower number. And you'll see now it takes a little bit for it to get up to speed. Wow. Okay. Now that we have tested this, we can put the seat on and I can finally ride this thing. So on the seat, you have 2 screws right here. Those are 2 black screws, and then underneath in the back, up under here, underneath behind the headlight, there's 2 more screws, and that's how that seat is secured. That's how you access the controller. So I'm going to put the seat back on, and then in the next video, we will be going out and testing the mini goat. I can't really go out today because it is raining. It's supposed to rain all weekend, unfortunately. Remember, if you guys want to see the next video of the mini goat, hit that subscribe button down below. If you guys want to see more of the mini goat, make sure you hit that like button down below as well. I'll see you guys in the next video. Can't wait to show you this mini goat.